Scatterbrained. This is someone that is very disorganized and lacks in concentration, but they're also very forgetful and they don't really think clearly. Usually someone who is very scatterbrained, they're very passionate about what they want to do. They have a lot of ideas they want to implement, but they never really follow through with their own ideas. But when they do, it's not very well executed. Phil is one of those people that is very scatterbrained, but at the same time, he has no idea what he is doing, and yet he'll expect other people to do the work for him. Also, he tends to be very nonsensical and illogical when it comes to his thinking, saying that he has a full rationale thinking, but not really. You could also say that he has a weird way of trying to justify himself to why he won't do something, but then he'll forget the story that he told and just contradict himself later. Let's check up on our patient and see what he's doing now. But before we actually get started into that, I'm actually going to do a little bit of changes here. So with the two claps of my hands, something will change. So there we go. That's all better now. I got a good setup going here. So good. Now we can officially get started. Already I could just tell that this is going to be filled with a lot of bullshit excuses. Then again, that's what the title card said. Oh god, so he does this a lot. He did this with Dead Island 2, how he listened to reviews. Even though the game wasn't that bad, he still listened to reviews like, oh, it's terrible.
Now let's talk about the reviews for Diablo 4. Alright.
Also, he was ranting and raving, saying that Street Fighter 6 was getting a lot of praise. That part I know.
Right? I kid you not, if you look at the review patterns and the scores, they're essentially the same. It's all like 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I'll say a little bit, it looks like it's reviewing a little bit lower than Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 is getting a lot of 10 out of 10s.
Well, here's the difference between Diablo 4 and Street Fighter 10. They're both completely different games. You're going up against a fighting game with an RPG. The only thing that they share regard is that they have been known for a good long while. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, a lot of people knew about these games. But you seem to think that, oh, this game should be ranked higher because it's a fighting game. I really don't understand his logic at this point, but let's continue.
Diablo 4 seems to be like 9 out of 10s. Okay.
Well, it's probably well justified, Phil.
I'm going to just read a few quotes. I have a lot out of the IGN review, so I'm going to give a shout out to IGN on this one. I'm going to quote the review a bit.
Phil, I thought you didn't like IGN because what was it that game was called? Murdered Soul Suspect, that you played the game, really enjoyed it, and you hated the review that shat on it because you thought he wasn't doing his job. I believe that person was Mitch Dyer, and you had a big fucking problem with Mitch Dyer, and Mitch Dyer fired back at you, and it basically decimated any credibility that you had. I remember this shit, Phil.
Here's their little snippet, and then I'm going to read some more details. So here's their little snippet. Like seeing your favorite band play their greatest hit live, Diablo 4 is completely awesome to behold, even though you know exactly how the song's going to go from the moment you hear the first iconic note. Our review is 9 out of 10.
Well, I actually can see what point they were making with that review, or that little snippet. Essentially, what they were trying to say with it is that you take a game that has been well-renowned for years, for many decades, and it's coming back, and it's coming back stronger with a modern twist. That's why they use the favorite band analogy. It works. They take a song that was made back in the many years ago, like say 10, 20 years ago, and they replay it now. It'll either sound really good or really bad, but either or, depending on how big of a fan you are, it'll sound just as amazing. That's essentially what they're saying. How the fuck is Phil going to take that praise and shit on it? I really want to know.
Now, I just want you to listen to that. You're going to see your favorite band. You've already heard their song a million times, but you like hearing it live. So you enjoy the experience, but there's really nothing new besides experiencing it live. 9 out of 10.
Phil, you really overthought this and are missing the point. You're looking into this going, so the game's gonna suck because they compare it to a band that's, you've heard this song a million times, but Phil, this is not gonna make any sense coming from you. Then again, you don't really like music that much.
Does that sound like a glowing review?
It's a good point that they're making. Even though you know exactly how the game's gonna play, it still shines on. That's what they were trying to say. I know I might be defending IGN with that though, but coming from a dipshit like Phil, I really don't think that this guy should be going after IGN. He did it in the past and it failed.
Does it?
It does, Phil. You just overthought it and you came to a negative.
If you're just like analyzing that at face value of what they're saying, that sounds to me like this game is just a retread. But it's a good retread that plays well, but it's just a retread.
How is it a retread? They're just saying that even though you know how Diablo is going to play, you are going to like it regardless. Phil, a lot of games out there are retreads. Fuck, Street Fighter 6 is a retread of other Street Fighter games. They just changed the mechanics a little bit. They're probably going to do the same thing with Diablo 4. Phil, come on.
Right? So then you actually go into the details. And essentially what they say is, this game sticks to the formula of what's worked in the past. Although they expand upon it. Yes, there's better skill trees, and they took some ideas from other games. They actually say like Path of Exile and Lost Ark are examples of a couple games that have come out in the last decade since Diablo 3 that have advanced this kind of gameplay. And they did take a few of those ideas from those games and implemented it into Diablo 4.
And how is this a negative? I really want to know, how is that a negative? Yes, I have played Path of Exiles. It's a good game, and it's good to see that Diablo 4 is implementing things from those games. But how is this a negative? How is it that you took something that could be considered a positive to some people, and you just turned it around and was like, I'm going to make this negative. I'm going to have the contrarian route today.
They also say, just listen to this. The first act of the game is incredibly good. The story is great. The antagonist is really interesting. I guess her name is Lilith. She's supposed to be like the daughter of one of the grand demons, and she's screwing with Earth. But then, the next 3 acts, you're doing tangential story that is confusing, makes no sense, and doesn't really tie into the story. Then all of a sudden, in the last act, you're back to going after Lilith, and the game's good again, then it ends.
So just like every other RPG, how they show off the main antagonist, and then they make you do other things throughout the game until you finally get to the final showdown with said antagonist? How's this a negative? Also, whenever Phil strokes his little patchy wannabe goatee, he's trying to make something intelligent, but we all know what's going to come out of his mouth. Something incredibly fucking stupid.
I'm not going to say anything yet. I'm just going to, this is stuff to mull over.
You already said plenty with that first comment about the greatest band live comment. You've already said too much with it, but you're going to make this into a negative.
Right? You continue to read the reviews, and they say things like, the classes are great, they're varied, they're interesting, they're addictive. If you beat the game once, you kind of want to jump right back in to try another class because it's fun to see the differences between the classes. Just so you guys know, that's par for the course for Diablo, and Diablo 1 and 2, it was exactly the same, where the classes did play differently enough that if you really enjoyed the game one time, you probably wanted to go back and play it again, because you want to see how the other classes play. So again, it's not necessarily different, it's more the same from previous Diablos, but it's good, because that's one of the best things about the previous Diablos.
So why are you complaining about it, Phil? Why are you complaining that they're taking implements from their old games, and they're adding new stuff from other games that copied the same Diablo format? I really don't get why you're saying that this is a negative. But I'm also going to say this, Phil. I highly doubt you played Diablo 1 and 2.
The game has seriously disappointing boss fights, especially the final one of the story. It's not hard to feel let down by what this game could have been. I'm reading word for word out of a review. I'm not making this up. I'm literally reading this word for word out of a review.
Then again, Phil, you're reading one review. One review could say that the final boss is not that great, while others could tell you that it's actually pretty decent. Again, Phil, you're taking one review and you're thinking that that's going to be like the overall arc of the game's final boss, when it might not be. Because, like I mentioned before last time when I talked about you covering reviews, it's always a bias of one guy. It's never the bias of all. Instead, you just want to take one bias and put it on this high pedestal. And everyone else that might have better points than that one you put on the pedestal, but you're just going to look at that one point and be like, then the game's going to suck then. Gotcha.
It looks and sounds fantastic, even though you might not like what's going on in the story.
Most RPGs are like that, Phil. A lot of them do that. One of my favorite, like, Final Fantasies, which is 9, is really good, but there's parts of the story that really kind of drives me away from it from time to time. It happens, Phil. That is the curse of RPGs. Granted, not all of them. Also, quit picking at your goddamn face. I get it. You don't fucking shower.
Okay, let's continue.
Let's continue shitting on this game with reviews that I found, and I'm just reading just little clips of it and not reading the full fucking review.
I'm not making this up. I swear I'm reading it. Okay? Also, the game has lots of bugs. Here's an example of a game-crippling bug that everyone will complain about.
Then again, where is this going to happen? Is it going to happen on console, or is it going to happen on PC? You seem to think that PC bugs are going to come onto the console bugs, which it might not. But I love how you're like, oh, it has bugs. Let's talk about the bugs. I'm going to talk about why I don't want to get this game, snit.
If you're playing the sorcerer class, you're constantly teleporting around. However, be prepared to get stuck in the ground literally hundreds of times because Blizzard didn't account for vertical geometry changes.
Oh, why did he take... No, don't cut those. But I'm going to go back to another thing that I forgot to mention, though. Welcome to modern gaming, where there's going to be bugs, but they're going to find ways to patch it, Phil. What the hell is up with that little, little act of... It's like, Phil, just stop with the fucking clown act and just talk about the game and why you're not going to play it.
Now, if you continue to read...
Even someone in your chat says that the post-game stuff is really good. So, listen to your chat, Phil. Like, take into account, Phil, most of the games that you see on a critic level that get scored high might not be good. That's why a lot of people tend to go for the user scores, because it's actual people playing the game and they're giving their true thoughts on it. Most of the true thoughts of a game usually comes from the consumer, not the journalists themselves.
Essentially, what the review ends on saying is that the best content of the game comes post-game.
And... that tends to happen quite a lot, Phil.
Once you play through the entirety of the campaign of Diablo IV, you open up post-game dungeons at incremental levels. I think it says like one of them is at like level 50, then there's a level like 70 or 80, then there's a level 100. And those post-game dungeons are very fun and challenging, and they really feed into the addictive nature of what makes Diablo great. It's combat.
Why did you say addictive like that, Phil? Like, hold on. I'm going to go back on that, and I'm going to let you hear that.
Feed into the addictive nature.
Addictive. Like, he really had to emphasize that word a lot. You're not wrong on the post-game stuff being really, really good. But also, didn't you play through an optional dungeon of Final Fantasy V without any random encounters? So you essentially cheesed it? Some gamer you are.
Getting better abilities, leveling up set abilities, fighting giant mobs and overcoming them. This makes you feel very powerful. And therefore, that's where the strong points come in Diablo IV.
So you're, again, reading the reviews of it, and you're just taking that at face value. But then again, Phil, you're never really powerful when it comes to your stream, so when you do it in a video game, you feel like a little power-hungry surge through your body. just maybe.
And it's also funny because it says, from what's in the base game, it seems like they are definitely leading you into a DLC that's going to be great, but the base game is just a good lead up, but definitely feels like you don't hit that culmination of what you're looking for.
RPGs are definitely like that. They did that with Fallout, like with 3, New Vegas, and 4. They always had to implement a main story, but the DLCs are usually better, give or take. But you seem to think that, oh, just because it's Diablo 4, it should be really, really good. But I'm reading all these reviews, and they're saying that, oh, parts of the game are really bad, so I'm going to skip on it, guys.
So I just want to review what I just read, okay?
Wait, you're going to do a summary of a summary? Oh, God, you are so going to be scattered.
It's a retread that plays much like classic Diablo, doesn't innovate that much, although it has some modern innovations for the last decade, not that many. Feels like you're kind of going home to a classic that you've already played, but it still feels good.
Yeah, and that's why IGN did that, seeing your favorite band playing live, and it's still good.
The story is only good 40% of the time, because the entire middle chunk of the game is completely superfluous and a waste of your time.
That also depends on the player themselves, not what critics say. What you may think might be really boring, someone else might not. But you're looking at this at face value going, oh, the game's going to really suck because it's only good 40% of the time. It's like, How do you know, Phil? Have you fucking played it?
Full of bugs.
Well, that's also to be expected with gaming nowadays, ever since the 360 PS3 era to now, when it became more prominent.
And polished glitches and things that need to be fixed.
Which they're probably going to do with the day one patch, as well as multiple patches along the way. Again, it happens.
Game doesn't really get good until you beat the story, and even then the post-game content just feels like a lead-up to a good DLC, and you're hoping the DLC is good. By the way, the review score, 9 out of 10.
And you're complaining about the score? Phil, if this was you playing the game, you would probably give it a 6 out of 10, maybe lower, because it's not meeting your expectations. What your expectations might be, other reviewers or other people might not have the same expectations as you. They might have a little bit higher, a little bit lower. It all depends on preference. I'm going back to this point. Preference. Why are you staring at me, Phil? I'm not fucking you. Get Kat to do so. Oh, right. No, she's gonna go drill Tyrone. Right.
I wish I was making it up. This is what I mean about modern game reviews.
You're making some parts of it up, and you overthink a lot of reviews. You take them at face value, and you tend to overanalyze everything, Phil. Like, I don't understand how you could do that. Just, if you want the game, get the fucking game. If you don't want it, skip it, like you tend to do with all the other good games out there.
This is what infuriates me about modern game reviews.
Wait. What in the unholy fuck did you just say?
This is what I mean about modern game reviews. This is what infuriates me about...
Infuriates? Phil, did you mean infuriate you? Steve, you got another one. Infuriate.
How do you sit down and say, I have a laundry list of criticisms for this game, of the ways that it could be better? Oh, by the way, 9 out of 10. Seriously, it's fucking bullshit, and
How is that bullshit, Phil? There are a lot of people out there that can take a game and put it like in a high regard, like a 9 out of 10, and it does have problems. Phil, it doesn't stem to just those. It also depends on how much the person has played the game. That's the same way what people are doing with Diablo 4. They're taking a game and they're putting it in a high regard because they really enjoyed what they had, despite all the negative criticisms that they have about it. What you're doing, Phil, is taking all these negative criticisms and you're saying that, oh, it doesn't deserve a 9 out of 10 because it had all these negative criticisms. It should be lower. And yet you're throwing a bitch fit about it. Like you always tend to do. It's the king of hate coming back.
I hate this shit.
Yeah, you hate everything, Phil. We get it. Move on.
I hate it because people will not read the review.
Phil, there are a lot of people that read reviews. Then again, Phil, didn't you say for like day one releases that they read reviews on it to see if they're good? Just like how you're doing to it now? You fucking hypocrite.
People, sadly, they only look at the number, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to look like the number rankings of these games and say, Diablo 4 is a 9 out of 10. Then they're going to play it and say, why is my sorcerer stuck? Why is the game so boring in the middle? Why is the story stupid? Why is it not good until I've already beaten the story, which took like 40, 50 hours? Why am I now only getting to good content?
Phil, you're really taking the mindset of people that look into reviews and you're just making them look like fucking morons. Why do you think that whenever they read a review, they want to read every little part of it? You seem to think that that's just the fine print where everyone tends to ignore it and the big print is just the fucking number. Then again, Phil, there are a lot of people out there that actually do review video games on YouTube, and they do it a lot better than these journalists. They do it a lot better than you. But at the same time, though, it comes back to this one. Preference.
Do you see? So, this is what drives me nuts about modern game reviews. Where is the responsibility? I understand that Diablo is a ginormous game. I understand that it's a flagship title for Blizzard. I understand that people will be playing and talking about it like crazy this month coming up. Does that mean that it just by default should get a high review score? I don't get it.
You really don't understand it because you're not in the game. You have no idea what it's like to review a game. Like, sit on your ass playing the video game for a long, long time to get your thoughts across. You seem to think that this is an irresponsibility on the reviewer's part. As I said before, it's all in the bias of that reviewer that reviewed it for that website, like IGN, Polygon, Kotaku, GameSpot, Game Informer. It's all in the bias of one person. And then you seem to think that all these people are going to go buy this game because they saw the number and then they play it and they don't enjoy it. That's also a little thing of buyer's remorse. You don't seem to think that people have this, but you could just do this all the time and have none of it, but when you play the game, you get really irritated with it. You're just projecting what you're going to do onto other people that are probably going to buy the game and enjoy it a lot more than you.
If your entire review is criticism saying the game should be better, here's why. But then you give it a 9 out of 10, you might as well just delete the text out of your review.
How is this a point of yours, Phil? There are a lot of games out there that are 9 out of 10s, and they have problems. Even though Diablo IV got a 9 out of 10, but it had a lot of issues with it, but they were minor issues, I'm going to bring up IGN's review of Street Fighter VI. It also got a 9 out of 10. They loved the game because it was an improvement over the betas, because a lot of the problems that the betas have are from the online features, which was good for Capcom to do the betas because they improved the netcode of it. As well is that they started to say that it's really good off the bat, good roster, good everything. But the only issue that game had, it was the story mode. How World Tour wasn't that great, and it's very slow progressing. And that he wants to put that game in a high regard. But instead, you're going to do this little deep dive analysis into Diablo 4. It's like, Phil, just say you don't want to fucking play it because it's an RPG. Just say that, and people might believe you more. But no, let's show you justifying yourself into why you're not going to play a game. Because you love to overthink things, you love to be negative, even though this is a chill, positive stream, and you just talk out of your ass way too much.
This is what always drives me nuts about these reviews.
Even one of your chat members is like, we're skipping D4, folks.
They do not scale them properly. How can you give one game a 9 out of 10 and say it's nearly flawless, give another game a 9 out of 10 and say it has tons of flaws?
Again, Phil, I'm bringing back IGN on this one. Different fucking reviewers. You have one person reviewing Street Fighter 6 and they had another person reviewing Diablo 4. Do you seem to think that one person is reviewing all these games, Phil? Like, I want to know, in your mind, do you think that they have only one person reviewing all the games? If that's the case, my God, how delusional.
You can't do that.
Why can't you do that, Phil? Even though I've seen a lot of games that got 10 out of 10s. I'll bring back up IGN. Metal Gear Solid fucking 5 gave it a 10 out of 10 for its replayability, its fucking gameplay, and that it's really good. But their biggest criticism was the story. I'll give you a little bit of that one. You know what? Here, have 1% of that.
There is someone at that publication, IGN, that company. They're called the fucking editor. What the editor's job is to do is to read these reviews and to say to the people who wrote them, you have to scale this properly. You can't say 25 negative things about the game and give it a nearly flawless score. It doesn't work that way.
Phil, the editor has to work with the journalists themselves. They might say that it's too long. Can you scale it down to maybe a paragraph instead of 3? That's what the editor is supposed to do. They reread it, they proofread it, just like the journalist tends to do, and they tell the journalist, you need to make this a little bit shorter. You have good points with it, but condense it down. That is the job perk of an editor. They have some control with it. But you seem to think that the editor should just tell people, hey, you know how you gave that game a 9 out of 10? Well, you need to lower that score because you said a lot of negatives. I can just imagine you're doing this shit, Phil, that you think that you're wannabe J. Jonah motherfucking Jameson, and you're gonna be like, no, you can't do that. No, make that a 7 out of 10. It's like, Peter, you're fired.
There has to be a level of objectivity to your review. Yes, there is subjectivity as well, but just because you had a blast with the game doesn't ignore the 25 flaws you pointed out. It can't be a 9 out of 10. Go back to your fucking desk and rescore the game properly, you irresponsible jackass.
In other words, you're telling them do your fucking job properly. You're doing that exact same shit yet you said that you were not going to do, Phil. That you weren't going to insult journalists, game developers, game publishers. Then again, you seem to contradict yourself on an everyday fucking basis, Phil. Like I said before, even though it's a bias of one person, they're giving you an objective take on it. They're telling you, hey, this game's going to have problems, but it's still fun regardless. Some of these things that you're probably pointing out, they're probably minor flaws. Minor flaws does not deter a game from getting a 9 out of 10, Phil. Really? Oh yeah, minor bugs. No, that game should be a 6 out of 10 because of the minor bugs. I cannot imagine you working a journalist job. We've had that before with The Hateful Truth, and that was just god fucking awful.
And then you kick them on the ass with a giant boot, boom, and you knock them back to their desk, and you make them actually do their jobs.
So, if you ran a journalist company, you would actually harass and also incite violence onto your fucking coworkers or your workers. Great way to see how big of a quote-unquote boss you'll be. Because HR would be on your ass and you would lose a job. I got laid off of the job I just made.
Instead, it seems like these major publications are a bunch of fluff piece idiots. They will literally kiss the butts of these games and have it fucking go way high scores for no reason. Why?
You tend to do the same fucking thing. Mighty number 9, you gave it a 7.5. You said, I don't understand why journalists hate this game. This game's really fun. But other people have played it and hated it for their justified reasons. You, when it comes to reviewing games, you have no justifications to it. Going back to your Jedi Survivor gameplay, when you played it, at the very end of the fucking game, you were praising the game. You were saying that this game was really good with its combat, its story, its characters, and you were like, high praise. But throughout the game, you were complaining along the way. So, I'm bringing that point home where it's like, you're not good at reviewing games at all. You'll, like, chill out for it. You'll kiss that game's ass a lot while you hated it along the way. It's like hate fucking something.
Why is everyone pussyfooting around games media and games journalism? Just fucking be responsible and do your jobs.
A lot of people don't listen to reviews, Phil. They listen to the user scores because the customer is always right in this, Phil. Every time they get a game, and if they really enjoyed the game, they will tell you their thoughts on it. But if they didn't enjoy the game, they can have positives in their review, but they can also tell you why this game isn't worth your time.
Because then people would say, oh, it's a good game, but it's not great. They should have done a better job. Why are you afraid to say that to Blizzard? What are they going to do? Cry?
They're not going to be afraid to tell that to Blizzard. Blizzard actually will accept the criticism. Game devs always accept the criticisms of the games that reviewers are telling them. They're telling their audience this. They're telling the game devs, the publishers this. How is it that you're thinking that this is like really fucking hard for you?
Not give you the review copy? Fuck Blizzard. Be honest about the game. Stop kissing butt.
If you actually started a review saying that I didn't get a review copy of it, fuck the game dev, it's going to sever ties with that game dev or publisher with said major journalism corporation. So what you're essentially saying is, have them cut ties with it from a review. You really have no fucking idea how business works, do you, pal?
I'm tired of this shit. Because then no one can judge fairly what's good and what's not.
Hey, Phil, why don't you just buy the game yourself and then play it? And then give your own fucking take on it. Everyone does it, Phil. Like you already said, it's subjectivity. You already said that. God, even I said it with bias. Man, fuck. Kettleton, hand me a cigarette.
You can't have a fucking review that has a million criticisms and give it a 9 out of 10. You're a liar.
So are you, Phil. You lie every time you review a game when you get to the credits saying it's really good when we see video footage of you hating it.
An irresponsible liar.
Yes, you are very irresponsible. I mean, how many pulls did you pull in WWE Champions again? Oh, wow. That was 10 minutes. I didn't feel like that, but yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Am I saying that Diablo 4 is going to be bad? No.
Did you just get on to game critics for that? Saying that they're looking at the negatives and it should be a 9 out of 10, and now you're fucking doing this shit? Man, fucking hypocrite.
From what I'm hearing, honestly, okay, that review is telling me that I might like it, and here's why.
How in the fuck do you go from negative to positive? Like, I know a lot of people are going to say, a lot of people do that. They start with the bad news with the good news. But in Phil's case, how he does it, he'll bitch and complain and overanalyze the negative for a long period of time. And then he'll go like maybe 2-3 minutes saying, oh, this game is positive for this reason. It's like, Phil, just say what you really want to say. That you don't want to fucking play it. And move the fuck on. Don't do like you did with Dead Island 2, because we all knew you had no interest in it and that you didn't want to play it, but you had to quote-unquote justify yourself. So Phil, when he was talking about the review, the positives of it again, he backpedals saying that the game's going to be really good because it's reminiscent of Diablo 1 and 2, which he never played Diablo 1 and 2. He only played Diablo 3 back in 2012. So he wants to keep going on and on about how the game's really fun, that it's very addictive. He keeps bringing up the point of addictive over and over and over, saying that it's going to be a really good game. The whole thing with this, though, is that he just repeats himself over and over and over to, like, draw back away from all the negativity that he just gave for, like, 10, 12 minutes. And then now he's going to try to get the game. How fucking weird of this guy.
I guess the question is, would that translate well for me to streams for you guys? And
I'm going with a big fuck no.
the way I'm approaching it is I think it would, as long as we approach it as chill streaming content.
So essentially, give me money so I can actually play this game, guys.
This is not going to be a game where we sit down and we're expecting major story developments today.
Phil, didn't you just say that the story is actually interesting in the beginning and then not at towards the end? Didn't you just read that out? Then again, we all know that your perspective on games is very kind of weird all over the place, very fucking scattered.
This is not a game where we're sitting down and we're expecting to make giant chunks and leaps and bounds through a narrative game that I'm going to beat in 40 hours and then we're done with it. This is a game that's going to have an ongoing combat loop. A game where it's, maybe 2 hours, 3 times a week. We make good progress. We have chill streams, interactive streams where we're talking while I'm doing the combat loop and gameplay and stuff.
So it's going to be very boring. That's essentially what you're trying to say. It's going to be very fucking boring. Gotcha. Not looking forward to those.
That, to me, is how this game could be successful on DSP Gaming.
So essentially, you're just saying that the game's going to be very fucking boring because it's going to be you roaming around the world of Diablo 4. Just like what you do with the world of Tears of the Kingdom. How you're exploring one place to another. Nothing really major happens. You're not doing anything to improve yourself. But when you finally get to the main dungeon, then that becomes major development plot. So, boring.
It's not going to be like a standard playthrough. It can't be, because that's not how the game is designed. Yes, it has a narrative, but the narrative isn't even the best part of the game. The best part of the game is the combat and the post-game grinding content where you're always looking for that next piece of awesome loot that you grab, and now all of a sudden your build went way better. You know what I mean? Kind of like...
You're reading what reviews have told you. That's all that you're doing. It's not an original thought that you're doing, Phil.
Hades, where, yes, it's about the combat. Yeah, there's a story, but who cares about the story? It's all about the combat.
You really did not pay attention to Hades at all. Which Hades' story was really good. Every time you progress in the levels, yeah, sure, they're different because it's randomly generated. It still has parts of the story that adds more to Zag's character development. Adds more to why he's trying to leave Hades. My God, you have no idea. You probably bitched and complained that game got a 9 out of 10 too.
The better builds and just dominating the enemies and stuff. That's what Hades excelled on, right?
It excelled because of its gameplay, and also Supergiant is actually really well known. They've actually made a name for themselves way before Hades.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, is that's exactly how it could work. But then I would need the buy-in from the audience that you guys are going to actually come and chill and support that content.
Hey, there we go. There it is. There's him saying, hey, if you want me to actually play this, give me fucking money. There it is. You begging like you always tend to do.
Because it's very different from the kind of content that I make. Quite frankly, when do you ever see me play this style of game? Right?
When have you ever shown interest into a video game without a fucking buy-in?
It's very different. Very different. With Zelda, we already have some buy-in. We already have people who are showing up to the streams and they're enjoying the playthrough and know what to expect. But
you also want to drop the fucking game because you're not having fun with it. But yet you're saying that it's really good. We had buy-in, even though it was from one fucking person doing the most majority of the buy-in. Everyone else kind of did that, but he still chimed in. So, no. Nothing to do with that, Phil, because you're bored with games easily. Ronnie Blaze was right about you.
With Diablo, not really. I've only really played a game like Diablo once ever, and the playthrough didn't do good. And that was over a decade ago. But maybe today, with the changes to the content I've made and everything, it would. Alright?
Because the way that you played it wasn't even that good, Phil. You ever think about that? If you try to improve yourself as a content creator, as a gamer, then maybe it would do better? Of course not. It's always going to be the game's fault.
So I think that...
I wanted to make him chewing water and crunching on it. I wanted to ask him what kind of candy did it taste like this time. Damn it.
It could work. But it is a gamble. It is a gamble for me.
Like I mentioned before in last parts I made about you, Phil, anytime you're doing something, you want reward over risk. Even though you're taking, quote unquote, a lot of risks, you're still gonna get barely any reward. Don't blame us for that.
And I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical about buying this game and saying we're putting Zelda on hiatus and starting to play it, and then it doesn't work.
When he means putting Zelda on hiatus, he means I'm dropping this game. I'm going to replace it with Diablo 4. And he's going to do the same thing over and over and over with this game and Tears of the Kingdom. Just saying. So he's trying his best to try to figure out ways that he can actually try to make money from this game. But it's going to be clear as fucking day that he's not going to enjoy it. And he's going to drop Diablo 4 just like he's doing with Tears of the Kingdom. But going back to the whole point of the scatterbrain mentality, a lot of the times it kind of creates a fake history for himself. Phil has done this a lot in the past, and he still does it to this day, creating new stories to past stories that he already told. So here's him explaining why he had to leave his condo in Connecticut, because you know he loves creating fake history for himself.
From Brianna, let's get the glasses on. When you moved, what made you choose Washington? I grew up in Tacoma. I do sometimes miss my evergreen state, but right now I am in love with Arizona. Well, it was a combination of factors. I came from Connecticut, and let me tell you guys something.
Yeah, let me tell you the story again, and just make more and more of a fake history for myself to why I had to leave in the first place.
There's no reason to live in Connecticut. I wish there was, besides Italian food. That's about it. There is authentic, delicious Italian food in Connecticut. Outside of that, the weather is terrible, the prices are high, the taxes are high. It's just totally not worth it.
I love how he had to start off the first point of like, oh, the food in Connecticut, Italian food is so fucking good. And then he goes into the negatives about taxes and weather. It's like, aren't you complaining about the weather in Washington State? Aren't you just like saying it's so fucking hot outside? When it's not really, it's like 85 degrees.
Everything's overly expensive in Connecticut because they consider you like, oh, you could go to New York whenever you want. I don't want to go to New York. I've been there. I don't care about going to New York City or New York in general.
He doesn't want to like deal with people. That's the reason why he doesn't like going to New York, because he's a hermit. And anytime a hermit has to go out, he's very anxious about dealing with overly crowded places.
So I wanted to get out of there, okay? And basically I tried to look for a combination of factors. At the time when I was looking to move, my aunt actually was living in Washington State, and she had lived here her whole life, outside of when she was very young, and loved it. Loved the moderate weather, loved the, different things about it, nice natural things out here.
Isn't it the same aunt that took over the condo and then you complained that she wasn't doing well and wasn't giving you rent? Is that the same aunt that you're talking about, Philly?
And I was looking for basically a state that didn't have a state income tax, because I paid state income tax in Connecticut, and it was insanely high to the point where it was like not even worth it.
And didn't you complain that you had to pay a business tax when you moved to Washington State? And you made a big fucking deal that you had to pay taxes constantly, creating the tax saga? But then again, that's still an ongoing thing, because you'll bring up taxes every once in a fucking while.
Why are they forcing me to pay tax in the state just for living there, right? Here in this state, there is tax, but the tax is based on how much you spend. It's the state sales tax is higher, so it makes more sense. The more you spend, the more you pay in taxes, rather than just pay taxes because you exist.
That just sounds like a bull-faced lie. I'm not gonna lie. Any people that know taxes can prove me wrong and tell me if I'm correct or not, or if he's correct or not. I don't think he'll mention this, though, but the reason why he moved to Washington State was because he wanted to keep his then-girlfriend Leanna at the time. He actually wanted to keep the relationship afloat, so he moved to a bigger place so that they both could spend their lives together. But we all know how that turned out.
There are other factors as well. But basically, I was looking at different things, and it's like every other place that I found that was better basically had worse weather. So it's like Texas, incredibly like self-employment, own your own business, supportive, terrible weather. In the summer, too hot.
Yeah, he doesn't like dealing with hot weather because he'll be sweating out grease like he always tends to do.
Florida, super duper supportive of independent business, insanely bad humid weather.
And also deals with a lot of crazy people.
And it just kept coming up that way. It was like the trade-off was bad weather for cheaper prices. So I kind of found a medium. Where I lived in Connecticut, it was way more expensive than here.
Phil, if you didn't want to pay that much taxes and you wanted to own your quote-unquote business, you would have to take that bad weather. But the reason why you didn't take it, though, is because you didn't want to deal with that. Oh, I didn't want to pay a lot of electricity bills. I didn't want to pay that much money for it. Phil, you're just a baby. Shut the fuck up.
I owned a condo in Connecticut that was like a tiny place, and it was like $160,000 condo, okay?
That you bought with your own money, though. Phil, for someone like you, it would work, though, because you owned it. It would work for you and your wife. You're not going to have any fucking kids, so that place would still be perfect for you. But you want to make up these excuses why you didn't want to live there because of taxes. Even though you bring them up a lot, how you had to pay your tax guy. You had to do all that. Like I said, tax saga.
This house, when I bought it 10 years ago, was just over $200,000. And it's a big house, okay? Now, prices have increased, and now this house is worth way, way more. But the point is, essentially live here, everything an upgrade. Bigger house, better weather, better, you know, business savvy, and better internet as well.
And also you were trying to save a relationship that ended up being failing anyway, and then you got married to somebody that doesn't love you and wants Tyrone every single night.
To be able to do what I do for a living. Like, there's a ton of improvements to my life for essentially not really that much of a big difference in cost of living.
And look at you now, Phil. You're saying that, oh, this was going to be a big positive change in your life, but you're negative. You're miserable. You've gotten worse when you moved to Washington State. I mean, I'm just saying, man, everyone has seen it.
So that's why I moved out here.
I'm going to leave this in. Yeah, his internet has actually gone awful.
Since then, of course, things have changed. Now it's hotter out here. Now, the home
Which you complained about Texas and Florida having really bad hot weather.
value went up, so now property taxes went up.
And now you're complaining. Phil, you own a house, so no shit your property tax went up. But yeah, you know, all these places that you picked, you went for Washington State, which was supposedly better. And now it's worse for you. Karma's a bitch.
You know, prices have gone up, inflation.
Yeah, that's the economy's fault for that one. But still, you chose this place, Philip.
So it's like things change over time. But in reality, I love my life out here way more than I did living in Connecticut. I did not enjoy Connecticut at all.
Oh, God, you're going to bring this up. So you hated it in Connecticut, but you love it in Washington State, but you look fucking miserable when you're in Washington State. Didn't you bitch and complain that Washington State doesn't have good Italian food places, and you just went on a rant about that? Say that it's not authentic, no good Italian-style foods.
And I was there all the way until 2014. And I really hated there. There was so many reasons to not like living there, so.
And then there was a lot of drawbacks to that too, which you burnt bridges with your friends. You have really no ties with your family, so you have to take a long fucking trip to go see your fucking family. So, Phil, there's no real good praises for you moving across this fucking country.
You know, I'm not saying that there's not better places. I'm just saying this seemed to be like the best place for me, so.
Yeah, for you. And yet you're bitching and complaining about the weather and money that you have to spend on taxes. Great improvement.
Oh, someone insulted me?
Okay, I'm going to read this out. Let's see. How does someone who streams all the time still suck at video games don't get struck by the lightning again? Okay, so context for what this means right here. There's a TikTok video going around saying that, hey, there are a lot of people who suck at Tears of the Kingdom, but doesn't suck like Phil here. And that became a trend. He became trending on TikTok.
I'll upgrade my stamina when I find a place to upgrade it. You're kidding me! Riding full speed, the lightning hones in on you and it hits you? You see, this isn't fun. I'm sorry. Randomly, a glue monster appears, takes all of your health. Oh, you don't have enough stamina to climb something standard at the beginning of the game. Oh, lightning just hones in on you and then kills you. How is this a fun? It's bullshit. It seems like they put stupid, annoying mechanics in the game that take away the fun factor. Like, why the fuck did they do that?
Oh, God. I mean, kudos to the super chat.
Someone named Daily Asgardian News did a super chat and said something insulting, right?
Even though I just read it off, but you won't because you're a pussy.
Great. Thanks for the insult and thanks for the super chat. I'm not even going to ban you because maybe you're stupid enough that you'll do another super chat.
Oh, so you're baiting him to giving you more money, I see. You know, he's probably not going to give you any more money, Phil. Just saying.
Could be. You know, I'm not going to pass that one up. Anyway.
Hey, look, a gotcha machine. Are you going to gamble again? Well, never mind.
Aha. No!
Oh god, how did you Phil, just grab. I'm looking at this, just grab and pour the water all over it while it comes, Phil. Oh. Not a clown.
This is working. Nice.
Hey, finally figured it out. Never mind, I misspoke.
Oh!
Phil, quit it. You're not funny. You're not an entertainer. You're just being annoying. Please stop. I'm just gonna let this keep going. Not a clown, not a chosen entertainer, everybody. Phil, are you constipated or some shit? In the case of Phil trying to justify his own actions, his thought process is very fucking scattered. Yeah, as you could see with him talking about Diablo IV, that he wants to play the game, but he was so fixated on the negatives that he wanted to like completely skip it entirely, but then change his own mind saying that, hey guys, I might not play Diablo 4, but if you give me money, I can play this game. He does it every single time he sees a game that he knows won't get a lot of traction. He thinks that it will, due to the fact that it's a new game, but it never really works out in his favor. The same thing can be said about his story with the condo, how he originally moved there so that he can avoid paying higher taxes, but he was trying to keep his girlfriend's safety intact and also keep that relationship afloat while moving on, but doesn't seem to bring up Leanna at all and just refuses to say her name. Phil, we all know that anytime you say something, it's completely scattered and contrarian. So you want to say that you don't want to do something, but you'll do it anyway, or vice versa. Keep your lies in check and also keep your thoughts in order. That way it doesn't make you look like an idiot. So with that, we will end it with the Phil prayer. Deliver us from the dents. Deliver us from the pay pigs. Deliver us from the pignosis. May we never become dented, and may we never become beggars like DSP Gaming. Amen.